Welcome to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast, the show that offers you tips and strategies to help speakers build the business of their dreams. Now here's your host, 30-year industry veteran and business coach, Jane Atkinson.
Well, welcome everyone to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast. I'm your host, Jane Atkinson, and today we are talking high stakes speaking. All kinds of fun things. I'm so happy that our special guest is Ruth Milligan. Welcome to the podcast, Ruth.
Jane, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I can't wait for people to hear from you. Tell everybody what your background is.
Sure. I live in Columbus, Ohio, and I'm an executive speech coach. So for the last 35 years, I have been building up to this practice, which I've now been in for 15 years, of helping people level up their speaking and communication, whether that's from a manager to a director to a great speaker to the stage. I can't tell you, Jane, how many people I send to you who
Aww.
who think they should come to me, and I say, no, you got to go to Jane. Read her. If you only knew how many people I say, read Jane's book first. So those people that think they want to be on the stage making a living being a speaker, but most of the time we're working with people in high stakes situations that are bidding on jobs, defending their position, pitching new business, things that really have a lot of consequence. We, at one point, our tagline was, we work with people doing consequential communications. So
Wow.
that's what we're doing. And we do it training, coaching, facilitating, all of those things.
And the high stakes, high pressure situations can come in many different forms. Now, I do want to actually dive more into the high stakes in a little bit, but you also have a background with TEDx.
Yeah.
Tell everybody about your TEDx experience and how that looks to you.
Sure. So in 2009, I invited my husband to watch a TEDx talk online. It was the first time that I'd ever watched one. And he was watching with me. We were actually in bed because that's what you do when you have small children. And right, they're asleep down the hall. And I kept watching and watching. And I hear this loud, loud roaring noise. And it's my husband fast asleep snoring. And it was Elizabeth Gilbert's first talk, Love, on Eat, Love, Pray.
Yes.
And I clicked through and I clicked through and I was fascinated because they had posted all of these talks online in like 2008. So this was 2009, maybe 2006, but but social media finally got them, known. That night, I found a link that said apply to be a TEDx organizer. It happened to be posted the day before.
Wow.
The very first, it was this tiny little paragraph on their blog, and they had granted one license to somebody at USC as a test. And I thought to myself, I'm going to be the first TEDx organizer in Columbus, in Ohio. I am passionate to try this. And I did. And so on the stage, October of 2009, my partner, Nancy Kramer, and I were the 35th event to happen in the world. And just for context, I think there have been maybe over 50,000 events that have happened since then.
Oh my goodness.
So we did the first year, 2009, and we lasted until 2021.
Oh.
So we were one of the longest serving organizers. I had to give it up because of COVID.
Yes.
And we hosted all day events, half day events, women events, kids events. We helped to start the first event in an adult prison. We helped high school events. We helped community-based events. I helped inside corporation events. I probably have done a total either formal, informal. I've probably done 20 different curations and coachings of a variety of different TED events. So I'm very strong on the TEDx side. Don't ask me too much about the big TED because that's a whole different piece, and that's important for people to know. They go after the speakers they want.
Okay.
TEDx is a whole different genre. So what can I click
So
through on
I
that?
want to
Yes.
ask questions that our listeners might be curious about in relationship to TED. So what do you think the biggest, so in the TED Talks, you've said they invite you,
The big TED.
the big TED, little TED, TEDx,
You get to apply.
you can apply.
Yeah.
And are they both the same length of time?
So the speeches, the talks themselves, I've never said that word speeches as it relates to TED. First, the talks themselves, can't exceed 18 minutes, but I would say the trend in the last 5 or 10 years is closer to 12, 8 minutes. That's
Okay.
a steadfast rule that Richard Saul Warman put in place, who was the founder of TED. He wanted to invite some people to share interesting ideas, but he knew they'd never come. So he created this conference, technology, entertainment, design. And he told them they had 18 minutes, no podium, no stage, or no, sorry, no podium, no notes.
No
You just
podium,
on
no
stage in 18
notes.
minutes. No notes,
Okay.
you can have slides, and those you could have a few notes on your slides, but no teleprompters. So
Okay.
that carried through when Laura Stein started TEDx in 2009.
Okay.
It was a radical distribution of the brand and giving it in the ownership of people like me in Columbus, Ohio, that then curated our own events. So TEDx events are hyper local. They
Hyper
want
local.
to see speakers and things related to your community. So we
Okay.
would never accept a speaker in all the years we did TEDx Columbus. We never accepted a speaker that didn't have an intrinsic tie to Columbus.
Okay.
Once in a while, there might have been somebody that was raised here and moved away, and we wanted to have them back. So that's the first thing for people to know is that you can't just
Shop,
go and apply across
shop
the
locally.
country for a
Okay.
TEDx. I got a question last week from somebody in California. I don't do it anymore. Even if I did, I couldn't have had her as a speaker. So that's the
Yeah.
first thing. The second thing is each curation has a theme. So you got to like find the theme that the organizers have picked. And
Okay.
one of our themes was, and they were generally something you could tuck a lot of topics underneath. Disruption was a
Okay.
theme. Spark was a theme.
Right.
Pivot was a theme. So, and then you try to make sure your pitch is related to that theme. So that's
Right.
as a speaker, you're submitting your idea. Now, we would, in the last few years of our curation, we asked people to submit a 90-second video telling us their idea. And
Okay.
it was the best way to vet. First of
Yeah.
all, could you stay within 90, or did I say 90 minutes? 90 seconds.
90 seconds.
90-second video. First
Yes.
way to know, could you stay in time?
And they didn't. And how many people
A
didn't?
lot of did. A lot of them did. But if you
Okay.
went 3 or 4 minutes, ain't
Forget
no
it.
way I was going to pick you because if
No.
I only gave you 5 minutes of time on stage. So that's the first. It was a good
Yes.
early test. The second was, can I hear your idea in that 90 seconds?
Hmm.
And if I can't, this is the same thing you say. What's your, when you're talking to your speakers, what's your promise? Can you get it out? If I can't hear it, the audience isn't going to hear it either.
Hmm.
And it also gives me a sense of how much coaching do you need? Because if you
Hmm.
have a perfect idea in 90 seconds and you're not a great speaker, that's going to say to me, that's okay, because I can have people who aren't great speakers and work with them
Okay.
versus somebody who's perfectly polished and nails the sales pitch and wants to promote their whatever. Eh, not as interested. I loved the speakers who were raw that could like work
Right.
hard and level up. And that was really what gave us our inspiration for doing this work full time. Honestly, it was after the first TEDx in 2009. I gave up doing my general PR practice to just do this work full time.
Oh my gosh, this is so fascinating to me. So, talk about the rule that you can't have. Is it a rule of TEDx that you can't have given this speech or parts of this speech before?
No, I don't think that that's a rule. I
Maybe that's a
think that
TED thing, or
it
maybe it's
might be.
not.
I mean, I think TED views themselves, the word that you have to remember is TED is a publisher. So
Mhm.
they like to imagine that I'm publishing new ideas.
Oh, see, that's where it came from then. I'm
Yeah, it
publishing
doesn't
new
mean that
ideas.
they may have needed to see you give it at a conference or an academic event,
Okay.
but it doesn't mean that you're breaking news. It's that it's new and that it's it is breaking into a new realm and
Okay.
we
So-
actually, lots of people had talked about their ideas in other stages, but they hadn't done it in this genre, with
Right.
this publication, with this audience, with
Okay.
this tight 10-minute syndicable talk.
I think it's so helpful to think of it as a publisher.
Yes.
So, okay. Um, let's talk about how likely is it in today's age for your TEDx talk? We'll stick to TEDx because that's what you
Mhm.
know. for your TEDx talk to go viral?
Oh, I don't know in the last 2 or 3 years, but when I was still heavily involved, to be promoted to the front page of TED from a TEDx event was 1%.
1%. So you just gave a number of 50,000.
Those were events, not talks.
That was events. So there's a whole bunch of talks
Yeah.
with each event.
Yeah. And so what I'd say to speakers locally is don't think that you're going to get on the main page of TED. Now, TED has changed their algorithm, and
Okay.
TED has also changed how they list and promote talks so that you don't have to be on the main page to be found, because you can have a TED link now but not be on the main page. That was new.
Okay. That's
So
cool.
there are evolving things around, but to go viral, I in my 12 or so continuous years, I had exactly four, maybe four talks go viral total. And I mean, we're talking about a few hundred talks that we worked with.
Okay.
Now, we didn't have some of our talks we knew wouldn't go viral, and that was okay. We were
Right.
like, this is
And
just a great story.
that may not be the goal. When people come to me and say, I'd like to do a TED talk, I always ask why. What's your
Hmm.
purpose? Like what's your motivation behind it? And a lot of these people, I think, want it to launch their speaking business. And that's
Correct.
probably the right order. If you've got an existing business and if you've been giving a talk like this for a long time, they may not think it as
But
interesting content that
yeah,
hasn't been.
I think you're hitting on the last question, which is if you are promoting yourself as a keynote speaker on something, that's not what they're interested in. They're
Okay.
interested in your idea that is breaking through, science, research, technology. They want to know, like, like the guys that did the iPad technology first revealed it not as a part of Apple, but the previous, it was
As a
MIT
TED
Media
talk.
Lab or something. Yeah, as a TED Talk. I mean, there's a lot of things that are broken out, so they know where to find. Yeah, they know where to find those those researchers because that's what they're looking for.
Oh,
So it's a lot of people that are driven by data that have new discoveries and they want to publish them in this place. Now, that is not the same for TEDx because you
yeah.
don't, in a local community, you may not have a research base. Here in Columbus, we have tons of researchers at Ohio State and Battelle and
Right.
other universities. But even then, like, sometimes they're just so molecular and so distant, you're not going to really grab onto them until you can see the
Hmm.
application. So it's the person that wants to be a paid keynote speaker, if they have a chance at a TEDx, it may not actually be about their keynote talk.
Right.
It might be about something
And
else.
so
Goes,
if it does go viral, it may not actually serve your overarching
yeah,
ideas. And that's something that I'm always constantly bringing people to. When you have multiple topics, it may not serve the bigger picture. Okay, so
correct, yeah.
final question on the TEDx
Mhm.
topic. What would you say are the preparation steps
Oh.
for someone who has had great success at a TED Talk?
So what does success look like for someone giving a TEDx talk?
Well, I'm thinking, what are some of the like rehearsal,
Oh,
writing it out,
sure.
just give me some
Yeah,
of
yeah. So
the
actually, it's interesting. Last weekend, 30-second story. Last weekend, the 15th consecutive TEDx Ohio State happened. It's the longest, it might be the longest running student run TEDx
Oh, that's
anywhere.
cool.
I helped them the first year to launch in 2012, 11. And then in 2012, their advisor and I, we wrote an iTunes class on how to be a speaker coach because the students couldn't impact these really fancy professors and faculty that they wouldn't listen to them. So we got into the rhythm and what we believe to be true is something we do literally every day, which is that if you have a coach, you want to do one-on-one sessions at least 4 or 5 times, at least.
Okay.
You want to practice your talk from an outline, not a script.
Practice
You want
from
to
an outline,
outline,
not a
not a
script. You're
script.
not looking for word because why? That gets you jumbled
Well,
up.
because if you forget a word and you don't know what the next one is, then that's going to look like crap on it. So this is a what I like to call a very structured, timed conversation based on a very tight outline that
Hmm.
you have rehearsed and listened back to yourself many times, back to this notion of feedback that we're going to get to in a second.
Yeah.
And that you have your slides are there to support you maybe in the prompts, but there's no words, they're imagery. They don't have to be too fancy, but that you have embodied the talk. You have gotten it off the page and into the delivery, and you've listened to it and watched yourself many times over. That to me is the sign of a great preparer.
Okay. And I always call it in the bones, like the
There you
talk is
go.
in the
Yeah.
bone.
Embodied.
You
Yeah.
know it backwards and
Right.
forwards, but you don't maybe know it word by
Correct.
word.
That if they laugh or clap at a certain time and they interrupt you, you
You
know
want
how
it
to recover it.
present. Yes. And that's why getting it in the bones is so helpful
Correct.
because then you can show up present. I say the same thing to speakers who are having a recording done, like a two-camera shoot
Hmm.
or something like that for their video. And you know how much time and energy we put into getting a demo video right.
Mm.
People are really worried about it and they're thinking about it right up until the moment they go on. So I talk to them about kind of doing all of their stuff on the front end, getting all the plans and everything in everybody's bones, and then just showing up and being present for the audience because you don't want to be thinking, well, why is he over there? I told him he should be over here at this part. Oh, and the same thing goes for, oh darn, I missed that word. How
Right.
am I going to get that word in
Right. No, you
now?
want to be in the
That's
moment. Yeah. Yeah.
impossible. So you want to be really, really present with
Well, the
your
good news too is if you're doing it for a video, you can edit, but you know.
audience. This is of course true,
Yes.
but you can't edit the experience with
No,
the
no, no.
audience,
No, not at
and
all.
we definitely want to make sure that you're present with them because they really are the reason
Yeah.
you're there. You have to remember that sometimes. So, this
Exactly.
is so good. I am loving all of these
Yeah.
tips that you're giving. So, tell everybody the title of your new book,
Oh,
which is what
sure. Thank
prompted
you.
this conversation in the first place. What's your
Yes.
new book called and who's it for?
So our book is called The Motivated Speaker. It's for anyone who is motivated to do better in their speaking. And I
Oh,
would include keynote speakers who are paid in that category as well, not just those who are trying to level up their communication as they go. We went and looked for the answer to this question, which was first, how can we be better coaches to our
mm,
speakers?
okay.
And we have read every book, and they're all here, including yours. That I've read every book. I was a speech comm major in college. I was a speech writer out of college. I've spent my entire career in this space. And we were introduced, and I'll be very brief about this. We were introduced to this concept called a threshold concept, which is something you have to understand while doing it. So, Jane, when you cook, what's one thing you had to understand in order to be a good cook? Not just cook, but in order to be a good cook.
In order to be a
Good
good
cook,
cook,
you have to what's one thing you have to understand?
I follow a recipe.
Correct, right? Or how heat works.
Yeah.
So we can all speak, but in order to be a very good speaker, there are things you have to understand. And
Okay.
that's what the book is about. We wrote to and researched with a woman who's an expert in threshold concepts, actually wrote them for learning how to write.
Okay.
This is now the threshold concepts for learning to speak. We wrote them with her. We didn't discover them, we just named them
Right.
because we've been speaking forever and ever. But they're laid out in the book in 6 chapters, and I think we're going to click on one of them, our favorite, here in a second. But they are for the person who, when we get a call and someone who's in a high stakes situation, speaking situation,
Hmm.
and they say they got tapped on the shoulder to sit down in the middle of $1 billion pitch because they weren't nailing it. The answer to the question is in one of these 6 thresholds. They missed understanding something.
A misunderstanding something. And for people who are out there making a living at speaking,
Hmm.
why would you not want to sharpen the saw? Why would
That's
you
correct.
not want to go back and make sure that back to the cooking analogy, that you're getting the heat just right. I mean,
That's
there
right.
are
That's right.
so many little nuanced things about speaking that both emerging.
You can get in a routine and forget one of them, and then when you want to shift audiences or shift genres or shift topics or content,
Yeah.
these things are going to help you, in that. So for the higher level speaker, I think it has an application for sure.
Now, do you think that most people are like me and they really don't want to review the game tapes? Like, I do not love.
We actually use that analogy at the end of every, we're here in Buckeye, football land here. And
Yes.
it's the first thing they say, we're going to watch the tapes on, coming off the field. So
Yes.
100%, and I'll just click on one of the six concepts is great speaking requires feedback,
Mm,
your own included.
your own included.
So
So,
this means that there is psychology, Jane, that says I will find the thing that I need to work on faster and believe it more if I see it first.
mm,
So if I'm watching a tape of myself, let's say we watch this and we say, oh, we said too much, or we, talked too long, or we needed to unclog our throat, I'd say, oh my gosh, I never want to do that again. And in fact, we did a sampled podcast a few weeks ago in preparation for these, and I said way too many times. And I
oh,
watched back and I thought, I know better.
you have a term for that. What is it?
Are you an ummer?
You're an ummer. Are
I
you
am not. I am
ummer?
not. I am not an ummer, but I had ums, and I watched myself, and I thought, I know how to correct that. So for the next week, I practiced and practiced. Nobody had to tell me because I saw it myself. Now, what happens is if someone says to you, hey, Jane, do you know you say a lot? You'll say, yeah, maybe. And you'll go on. But if you watch it, you'll be like, oh, I don't want to be that audience. I don't want to be that person listening to that.
And
So,
somebody told me a piece of feedback. I can't actually remember the word it was that I was overusing, but thank you, Stephanie Staples, who's actually a good friend of mine. She just emailed me and said, just in case you don't know, you use this term. I forget what it was now,
yeah.
in the podcast a lot. And I took it to heart and I don't think I use it anymore,
Did you
Stephanie.
listen? Did you go and listen to yourself?
No, I can't do it. It's painful. It's too painful. And then so I am not embracing what you're talking about right now, and I should be. Um, so please don't do
Yeah.
what I do. There's an old saying that my old boss used to use, please take my advice. I'm not using it, which is horrible.
That
Anyway,
is
I really
so,
should.
so true. So actually, when we coach speakers every day, the first question we ask them
Yeah.
is, how do you feel about it? What you just said. We make them reflect because there's
Okay.
actually research that says they're learning while they're thinking about what they just did. When I'm giving that feedback, the only person it's serving is me, not
Mm.
the speaker. And so when I say, Jane, how did you feel about what you just said? Oh, I think I nailed it, but I could have worked on a better closing. You know, in your heart, in your bones, what you should have wanted to do better. And when
Mhm.
you say that to me, I don't have to tell you.
Now it's already done and it's
You're
out.
done.
Okay, what about the speaker that is so hard on themselves?
Yeah.
What about the speaker who's immediately going to start the minute they drive away from a paid professional engagement? And you know who you are if you're
Ooh.
listening to this right now.
Yeah, that's hard,
Won't
guys. That's
say
really hard.
names. You will start to review the game tapes in your mind, and it's always going to go negative, even when, as it turns out later on, they wanted to book you for more
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
because you were absolutely wrong on your assessment of yourself. How do you deal with that?
Well, the first is I'd say, let's watch this together. I'd sit with that person and I'd say, let's watch. And I ask the question, what do you see?
Mm,
And they may say, wow, I'm not as bad as I thought.
okay.
Is likely the first thing. It is the best way to trick your brain out of thinking you did poorly is to actually watch the things you did right. and the
Mm.
things you did well, because you're the negative always blankets over the positive. So find the good, find the positive. And I will also then say, and this is kind of the mantra we have, everyone has one thing to work on.
Mm.
So I'm a pickleball player. I play 3 or 4 times a week. And this morning, this woman that drills with me, she's just drilling me on this one thing, and I can't get it. I can't, I know it, I can do it, but she has
Yeah,
to constantly remind me. I'm a pretty good player, but she has to always remind me to do this one
because
thing.
everybody has one thing.
Everybody has one thing.
And I love pickleball, by the way.
Yeah, there you go.
Um,
Oh,
so
well, should we call it, can we talk about shaded?
yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
please, let's talk about shaded. So everybody has one thing. Um,
and it
um,
may be that you're already on the stage.
yes. Yes, you could be getting paid the big bucks and
Yep.
you might still have a
Yeah.
thing.
Let me
My
let me let me share that one story I shared about that, and then we
okay.
can talk about there was a story in the book about a very well-paid speaker, great research, best-selling book. Saw her twice in one summer. This was 8 or 9 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And after I saw her the second time, this is when I was more active on Twitter, I tweeted to her publicly
Mm-hmm.
without her consent or agreement. Hey, great talk. Don't forget, it's okay to take a breath. She sent me a DM back with hatred and vitriol and like, how dare you give me feedback? Now
Oh,
I thought to myself, this person's getting paid 25, 35 these days, maybe $50,000. She should
mhm.
be able to take the feedback if you're getting paid and you're putting yourself on stage. And she
Yes.
was really hard to listen to. And
Wow.
I thought, from my standpoint, I want you to do better because what you have to say is really powerful. So there were
Yes.
two problems in that. She had what I call a shaded habit. She had
Right.
a speaking pace that didn't allow her to breathe, and therefore it made it hard to hear. And in her everyday work and life, it was okay. But the minute that she comes out of the shade onto the stage in the lights, everyone hears it. And you have to level up. You can't, what got you there isn't going to get you to next.
Mm-mm.
And the second part of that was, I probably should have asked her, would you like some feedback? And she would have been prepared
100%.
for it, but she felt psychologically unsafe probably in my open public tweet. But both of these events were private, paid, closed door. So not the rest of the world didn't have to know that. But
So
at the same point, you're putting yourself on a stage. So there was a few sort of Easter eggs in that story.
there are, I think we are immediately on defense when we go on to say Twitter. We're in a place that the potential for negativity is so strong that we're like
Mhm.
putting on
Mhm.
our shields
Mhm.
and and we're going. And I think that that's really interesting. Obviously, she didn't potentially respond in exactly the right way. But I mean, this is what you're out for. Had she looked for the good in there, there
Yeah.
was a real nugget for her, and I bet you it did sink in because I bet you any money. Have you seen her since?
Yeah, I'm not sure it did.
Okay, darn.
It's okay. It's okay. I
Okay,
don't, I don't know if that was going to be her career, was being a paid speaker. She happened to be on a book tour, and because of
so
that.
maybe
And
doing other
but
stuff.
she was making big bucks still.
Yeah.
So, is this, do you want to get better at this, is a question. And if
Yes.
so, then ask for, and the last part I'll say about feedback is ask for specific feedback.
Mm-hmm.
How did I do on my opening? How did I do on my closing? Was my pace good? How did I look? Was I in my bones? Did I move right? How are my nonverbals? I was working on my icon. Like, be very specific when asking for feedback so that
Yes.
person that feels defeated, say, what feels defeating to you? Oh, they didn't laugh at that one joke, but they laughed at
Mm-hmm.
everything else.
Yes.
So maybe it's the one joke that needs fixed, not everything in your head.
Or tossed. Yes. Uh, I want to just pause on the power of the pause
Yes.
because I don't think it's underrated. Remember, I don't know if you know Lou Heckler. He is a professional. He's been a coach for a really long time.
Yeah.
He's a part of the National Speakers
Yep.
Association, and he talked years and years ago. I'm talking probably 15 years ago about the
Hmm.
power
Oh,
of the pause.
so powerful.
And if that's the only thing you take
Yes.
from this podcast today, please monitor your pausing. So let's talk about how to go through game tapes. I love, what did I do right?
Hmm.
What could I do better? I also love the idea of listening without seeing it and
Mm.
seeing it without hearing it,
Yes,
if
we
that
do
makes
that in every one of our style and delivery sessions. We do that. We make
sense.
somebody listen to themselves without
Yes.
watching themselves without listening.
Yes.
And in fact, our coaching practice, we don't want to see you on the first call. We only want to hear you. We hear different things when
Ooh,
we
that,
remove all the pressure of having like what we're doing now. We're smiling, we're trying to play with each other. But if we were just listening to each other, we may not spend so much energy making sure we're sitting up straight, we're looking each other in the eye.
yeah.
So that's very powerful. Turn off one of the senses,
Mm,
100%.
I
I
love that.
also back to the pause, it relates to timing and the ability to be okay with silence is what I think people are afraid of in the pause. Silence is hard, but it's so powerful
And it's okay.
because it's the lead up to the most important thing you want to say. It's the ability for it to land. Oh wow, that
Yeah.
felt great. Just like we're doing now, we're giving everyone a chance to catch up with what we've just said.
Minute.
But there's usually this race to the clock. I have to fit everything in. So
Yes.
my argument is if you've given 10 minutes, plan for 8.
Yes. Leave some air is
Hmm.
another term that I've heard in
Yep,
the industry before. Leave some air in your
100%.
presentation and have your content. Let's say you have a 45 minutes presentation, a keynote that you've been hired for. What would we plan for? 40 or less?
I'd plan for 30.
Oh, interesting. I
And
love
this is what
10
this
minutes
is
of air.
Air, well, because I just had a client go into a high stakes interview. It was a bid defense, and they said you have 90 minutes. But guess what? They started their 90 minutes in the other room, and they had to walk to a room. And then they took some time away that they didn't expect for extra questions. The host may not start on time. The
Yeah.
questions in the audience may go long. The audience may not be ready. There might be interruptions.
Mm,
There are so many things you're not in control of. But if you want your content out, do less. Just
yeah.
do less.
I love that. And people are always thinking, but if I
Mm-mm.
drop that story, they don't know what they're missing.
No.
They don't know the part that you're leaving out.
No. And yeah. And
Yeah.
Jane, I do think that because we had so many years of TEDx training, we're really good on the tight, short talk. We're really good at helping people get out a really high value, consequential, high stakes thing in 8 minutes or less. So we know that 20 or 30 minutes is really just a hierarchy of thinking and story, that just means a little more data and a little more story. Your core message doesn't change just because you have 10 more minutes from 30 to 40. And if you put it at the end, you're probably going to be disappointed because also, let's talk about forgetting curves and attention spans are
Mhm.
completely all whacked up right now. And so if you don't share what you're going to say, I mean, I watched a video today, it was 2.5 minutes and I got bored after a minute and I almost didn't watch the last 2.5 minutes. I looked at it and I thought, oh my gosh, that's horrible. I don't even want to, but he didn't grab my attention in the first minute. So I was like, why do I want to watch the
And you
rest?
have to.
Yeah.
Let's talk briefly about going over your time.
In the boxing match, Jane, in the boxing match of time versus content, what always wins?
Ding, 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 the bell, the
The
time.
bell, the time.
Yeah.
Never be distracted by another answer. It is
Yeah.
you are on the stage from 12 to 1 and you go to 102 and somebody pulls you off. Not their problem. That's
Uh,
yours.
and in your high stakes
Hmm.
pitches that your clients are doing,
Yeah.
can they get the hook? I mean, can somebody say,
Yes.
thank you,
Oh,
we've heard enough?
yeah. I had a client a few weeks ago. They were given 90 minutes. The host shape shifted some things, meaning they moved them from room they didn't expect. They took more time for Q&A. There was some setup in the room, and that was all eating in their 90 minutes. And my client had planned for 90. So all of a sudden it became 75. It became
Yeah.
70. And they missed. So this is what happens is you miss finishing what you expected to be able to do to meet all of the checkpoints because they're being graded and judged and scored. And those last 15 minutes that they cut, they said you're done after 90 minutes. They missed 15 minutes of content, which could mean 3 or 4 points, which could mean really like hundreds of millions of dollars in the contract if they score less than their competition. So for me, minutes can mean
Money,
contracts, dollars, money, scope.
money,
Yeah,
minute, money.
there's a lot that falls from that. And so we're actually really interested, and this might be the 2026, is what are the best ways to train your brain to know how to mind time while speaking?
Ooh,
Now,
well,
there's lots of research out there about time related to stress, but
yeah.
we're playing with this. How do you train somebody
Oh,
on
that's
knowing how long you've gone while you're speaking? Because in those situations, the clock may be, you may be looking at the audience, not looking at the clock.
so perhaps you're bringing your own clock with
Oh,
you
we do.
on
But
this.
still, sometimes
You're
you're not
not looking
watching.
at it. So how do you train your
I
brain
don't
to
know.
mind time?
Practice, lots of practice,
Rehearse.
and
Okay.
being very mindful that time is the client here.
Mm.
And
And
it's not your content, and it's not that time. I'm looking at the time right now. Like you said, you wanted to go this long. We've hit this long. I
yep.
want to be mindful.
And you
Maybe
have and I know that you need to be off of here in 18 minutes. And so
right,
I'm aware of your time. And so we are
right,
minding each other's time. And
right.
I'm constantly, you can see my eyes go up to the
Yeah.
right corner. I'm constantly looking at time.
But I will say,
But
Jane, I would just say this: how many times I tell people to do it,
yeah, they don't.
uh, declaratively saying yes, I understand, and procedurally understanding how to do it. There's a massive chasm
Yeah.
as it relates to managing time. So don't anyone underestimate how hard it is.
Yes. Okay. That's really good. And what I want to add to that is the meeting professional who is in charge
Mm,
of the rest of the day after
mhm.
you speak,
Oh,
you can throw a wrench into their planning by going 3 minutes
oh yeah.
over. Never ever ask the audience, is it okay
Oh
if
no,
I
no,
finish?
no, no,
It's
no, no,
not
no,
up
no. The
to
audience
them.
isn't the client. The audience is
Never
not the
put
client.
anybody on the spot when it comes to going over. Just don't
Yeah.
do it.
Well,
Don't do it
and
ever.
we had one year we had a full day of TEDx, and we had 13 or 14 speakers.
Ooh,
And you add 1 or 2 minutes to each of those people are missing dinner at the end of the day, and they are tired and they are hungry and they've got to get kids from daycare. And they're like, get me out of here. It was too long of a day, but we learned that even 9 speakers or 6 speakers, you take 1 or 2 minutes over. I promise to get you in at 1 and get you out at 5.
yeah.
You, person number 1, just screwed up my entire schedule.
Thank you very much.
No. So
That's all you'll
we
remember about that person.
as a host, I would say this: as a host and a curator and an MC, time was like definitely the highest priority. And if it's not, and you're not communicating that to the speakers, that's on you, not the speaker. Because if
Okay.
you're not telling the speaker, I'm going to cut you off, this is how I'm going to cut you off, this is where I'm going to cut you off, right?
Okay.
That's on the event host, not the speaker.
You have given us a treasure trove
Oh,
of
well, thank
values.
you.
Thank you so much. Tell everybody, when is the book out? Say the title again,
Sure.
and where can they get it?
Sure. So the title again is The Motivated Speaker.
The
There it is.
Motivated Speaker. For those, it's a beautiful red and white cover for those of you who are listening.
Thank you.
Uh,
6 principles to unlock your communication potential, which means that we're going to teach you what are the 6 things you need to understand always in order to do something well. And in this case, it's speaking.
Beautiful.
It comes out May 6th. It's being
May
published by
6th, 2025,
Wiley.
and it's published by Wiley, one of our
And
favorite.
it's on every channel: Bookshop, Porchlight, Amazon, Barnes and Noble.
You're going to be able to see it at the airport bookstore maybe someday.
Maybe. I hope
know
we
that-
actually designed it so you can see it across the airport terminal.
That's a great idea. Great idea.
Believe it or not, we got that idea from another author. We think that was
I love it.
helpful. And it's a great collaboration with my two coaches and I wrote it together. And I'll just leave you with this. We didn't intend to write a book. We intended to answer a question that ended up in a book. So it was really fun.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jane.
If you've been listening in and have appreciated this podcast, please let us know. Write to me, jane@speakerlauncher.com. I want to hear your feedback. Ruth, all the best. And with that, we will say, see you soon, Wealthy Speakers. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast. If you need help building the speaking business of your dreams, head over to wealthyspeakerschool.com and take advantage of our 20-minute next step call. Thanks for listening to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast.